Hello everyone, welcome to the chemistry laboratory. So in this session, we will be studying what is the importance of laboratory work when chemistry is concerned, what are the precautions or what are the do's and don'ts that has to be followed in the chemistry laboratory, followed by some important stuff which you need to know while you are doing the chemistry experiments in the chemistry laboratory. So what is the importance of laboratory work? Why should we study these practicals, laboratory? What is the importance of this laboratory? So this laboratory work, whatever subject it is, when I speak about chemistry, laboratory work plays a very important role in the study of science because the scientific principles will develop and grow based on the principles of laboratory work. And chemistry is an experimental science because whatever concept that we have studied in the theory can be better understood in the chemistry laboratory. And our life will be made easier. Now, so what are the important precautions or do's and don'ts in our chemistry laboratory? What are the things you have got to do? What are the things you should not do? First of all, I'll tell you what are the things you have got to do. So obviously, when you are entering into the lab, you have to carry the necessary stationaries like observation book, record and the necessary stationaries, followed by an apron has to be worn for the chemistry practicals. Then, what are the don'ts? So as you are seeing, so this room has got various chemicals and there will be burners also in the laboratory. So we have to be careful while we are dealing up with these chemicals. So none of these chemicals should be mixed until and unless the lab teacher instructs to do so. We are not supposed to mix any of the reagents. We are not supposed to taste any of the substances. For example, we have got sodium chloride in the chemistry laboratory. The sodium chloride is nothing but the edible salt that we take at home. So that doesn't mean I'll just take the sodium chloride and taste it. So that should not be done. So none of the things, if we are not supposed to taste anything, we are not supposed to intermix anything unless and until it is instructed by the teacher. And as you are seeing, all the bottles are labeled. None of the labels should be removed. None of the labels should be removed from the bottles because all these are colorless. So all they look alike when there are no labels on it. So we are not supposed to remove the labels. And use of the chemical substances, we have to use the chemical substances economically. We are not supposed to waste it. So these are the some of do's and don'ts in the chemistry laboratory. Then coming for the marks for this. So here chemistry subject has got a total marks of, has been awarded a total marks of 100. So for chemistry, so if your chemistry subject has been allotted a total marks of 100. In this, 70 marks is for the theory and 30 marks will be for practicals. 70 marks for theory and 30 marks for practicals. Then how is this 30 marks for practicals divided? So these 30 marks of the practicals is being divided like this. So for performing the experiment. So in the laboratory, you people will be performing certain experiment, performing of experiments, 20 marks is being allotted, wherein for this year we will be performing 2 experiments, each of 10 marks, followed by record, writing of record and maintaining the record will carry 6 marks. So after you perform the record, whatever observations that was done in the laboratory, should be recorded in the practical record and it has to be submitted during the practical examination, which will carry 6 marks. In addition to it, Viva questions will be asked, which will be carrying, for which 4 marks is allotted, a 30 of total marks of 30 is allotted for practicals. So what do they do in Viva? In Viva, we will be asking 4 simple questions will be asked on the experiment that you are performing. And there will be, those questions will be very simple. By answering that, you people can acquire 4 marks easily. So this is about the weightage that is given for chemistry practicals. Now we will see what are the experiments that are prescribed by the PU board. So according to the PU board, 2 sets of experiments have been allotted for this. So one is volumetric analysis, which is also called as titration or titrimetric analysis. Volumetric analysis or titrimetric analysis, and the other experiment is qualitative analysis. So in your practical examination, 1 volumetric analysis will be done, 1 qualitative analysis will be done, each will be carrying 10 marks. Okay. So before going into these stuff in detail, first of all we will see what is meant by analysis, because in both the experiments we are telling that we are analyzing something. So let's try and understand what is meant by analysis in chemistry. Later on we'll go further. So we'll see what is meant by analysis. So now we will see what is meant by analysis. So in simple terms, analysis is nothing but determination or detection. Determination or detection can be considered as analysis in simple terms. Then what does analysis means when it comes for chemistry? So in chemistry, analysis is nothing but detection of chemical composition of a compound. Detection of chemical composition of a compound can be considered as analysis in chemistry. Then the chemical composition of the compound can be done by, at times it can be done by looking at the physical properties like whether the compound is luster, by determining its melting point, by boiling point, or by observing the color imparted to the flame. But at times what happens, these detection of physical properties will not be sufficient in order to give the elemental composition of the compound. At that time, we take the assistance of chemical properties. So when we speak about chemical properties, we may study the reaction. We may make the substances react with alkalis, and we will see what is happening with the oxidizing agent, with the reducing agent, so on and so forth. Hence, in chemistry, these analytical methods are employed in order to determine the qualitative and quantitative chemical composition of a particular compound. Hence, chemical analysis is being broadly classified into 2 types. One is qualitative analysis and the other one is quantitative analysis. In qualitative analysis, we are determining the constituent, type of constituents that is present in that particular compound. So here we are determining the constituents that are present in the compound, that may include analysis of or detection of ions, etc. And what happens in quantitative analysis? During quantitative analysis, we will be analyzing the quantity of the constituent that is present in the compound. So qualitative analysis helps us to identify what are the constituents that are present in the sample that we are taking under an investigation, and quantitative analysis helps us to determine what is the quantity of the constituent that is present in that particular compound. Now, depending upon the analytical measures or depending upon the analytical methods, quantitative analysis has been classified into two types. Depending upon the analytical methods, quantitative analysis has been classified into two types, those being volumetric analysis, which is also called as titrimetric analysis, volumetric or titrimetric analysis, and the other one is gravimetric analysis. Volumetric analysis or titrimetric analysis, and the other one is volumetric analysis. So what happens in volumetric or titrimetric analysis? In volumetric analysis, we will try to analyze or determine only the volume. So determination of the volume of a particular substance is done in volumetric analysis. Then what happens in gravimetric analysis? In gravimetric analysis, we will be determining both mass and volume. And in the beginning, when I gave you the instruction for the experiments in the chemistry examination, I told you about volumetric analysis or titration. So this is that class of experiment, or this is that group wherein the titration belongs to. So now what will we do is, we'll try and understand what is titration, what are the basic terminologies that are used during titration, and what are the steps that has to be precautions or steps that has to be followed while titration. And later on we'll perform a titrimetric analysis and we'll see. Okay. So now we'll see what is meant by a titrimetric analysis or a titration. Titration or titrimetric analysis. So titration or titrimetric analysis is defined as an experimental technique which is used to determine concentration of one solution using the other solution whose concentration is known to us. Which means during a titration, two solutions will be given to us. One solution concentration will be known to us. Using this solution, we will try to determine the concentration of the other solution by doing this volumetric analysis. So now we will see what are some common terminologies that is used during titration. So before going common terminologies, that is used in the titration. So the common terminologies are standard solution, unknown solution, then indicator, endpoint. So these are some common terminologies that we will be using during our volumetric analysis. So what is meant by a standard solution? I told during titrometric analysis, two solutions will be given to us. One concentration will be known, one of known concentration, and the other will be the solution whose concentration is unknown to us. So the solution whose concentration is known to us is called as standard solution, or you can also call it as standard solution is a solution of known concentration. Then what is the unknown solution? Unknown solution is nothing but that solution whose concentration is not known to us, whose concentration we have to determine by this volumetric analysis. Then coming to the indicator. So what is meant by indicator? Indicator is nothing but a chemical substance which has to be added during the titrometric analysis. And what is the use of this indicator? This indicator will help us to know whether the reaction has completed or not. How will we come to know? By changing the physical property, particularly color. So during the titration, we can come to know that the reaction has completed by observing the color change. So during the process, when the color has changed, we can tell that the reaction has got completed. In order to identify this completion of the reaction, we use a chemical substance which is called as indicator. Then what is the end point? End point is nothing but the stage in the titrometric analysis wherein the reaction would have got completed. The stage of completion of the reaction is, we will be considering it as end point. Now, coming to the so these are the common terminologies which we use. Now, we will see what are the different types of titrations. So titrations are of different types. We have got acid-base titrations, redox titrations, acid-base titration, redox titration, acid-base. There are many titrations, among which these two are important because these two titrations you will be studying in the 2 years journey of journey of pre-university college. So acid-base titration you will be studying in first PU chemistry laboratory. Redox titration you will be studying in second PUC chemistry laboratory. So what happens in an acid-base titration, or which titration can be considered as acid-base titration? Remember, just a bit while I told, during titration we make use of two solutions. So among those two solutions, if the two solutions are acid and base, if the solutions that we are taking acid and a base, then that titration we call it as acid-base titrations. So what is acid-base titration? It is an experimental technique in the volumetric analysis wherein the reaction will be happening between an acid and a base. So reaction will be neutralization reaction. Once the neutralization reaction gets completed, color changes and we can observe the end point when we have added the indicator. Then what is meant by, and an example for acid-base titration. So the example for acid-base titration is sodium hydroxide versus oxalic acid, and titration between HCl and sodium carbonate. So these two can be considered as example for acid-base titrations, and these two titrations are involved in our practical syllabus, are included in our practical syllabus. Then, what is meant by a redox titration? Redox titrations are those titrations wherein the reaction will be happening between a reducing agent and an oxidizing agent. So, titration between reducing agent and oxidizing agent is called as redox titration. So, one example for this redox titration is titration between KMnO4 versus FAS. Don't worry too much about it. A detailed discussion about this will be done in the next year. So, for this year, we have to concentrate mainly on acid-base titrations. Now we will see what are the apparatus that are required while we are carrying on the titrometric analysis. What are the apparatus? So, the apparatus are, we require a burette, pipette, conical flask, and burette stand. So, these are the apparatus that is required for performing a titrometric analysis. So, the apparatus are, so here these are the apparatus that are required for carrying on the titrometric analysis. So, the first apparatus I have written over there is burette. So, this is called as burette, and this burette capacity is 50 ml. How do I come to know? This burette has got graduations, and it starts from 0 ml over here to 50 ml over here. So, which means if I fill the solution from here till this line, then the solution will be exactly 50 ml. This burette has got a knob and a screw to adjust it. It has got a nozzle and it has got a knob. So, we can use this knob and we can adjust the flow of the solution from this burette. Okay. Then, this burette has to be carefully clamped to the stand. During the titrometric analysis, the burette should never be placed on the table. Whenever the burette is in use or not in use, it should be clamped to the burette stand. Okay. Now, this is what we call it as pipette. So, this pipette has got a marking over here. It has got a marking over here, and this bulged portion is called as bulb of the pipette. This bulb, on this bulb they have written it is 10 ml, which means if the solution is taken from the bottom till this marking, then the solution will be exactly 10 ml. So, this is a 10 ml pipette. So, different graduation pipettes we have got. We have got 5 ml pipette, 25 ml pipette. On the basis of our requirement, we can choose one. And whenever we are placing the pipettes has to be placed like this and on the table. So, it has to be placed vertically on the table when not in use. It should not be placed horizontally because there are high chance that this pipette can roll over from the table and it can fall and get broken up. And this is the next apparatus I have written about, which is the conical flask. So, it has 250 ml written over here. So, therefore, this is a 250 ml conical flask. In addition to it, we require 2 beakers like this. So, the solutions that are used for the titration will be provided in the beakers. 2 beakers of solution you will be given, and those solutions has to be titrated. Okay. Now, so quickly let me tell you what is titration again. So titration is an experimental technique wherein the concentration of one solution is determined using the other solution whose concentration is known to us. So here when I am telling about titration, I am more frequently using the word concentration. So what is meant by concentration? So concentration is nothing but the amount of solute which is dissolved in known volume of solvent leading to a solution. So when we take a particular amount of solute, when that is completely dissolved in known volume of solution, then we get known volume of the solvent, then we will get a solution whose concentration is known to us, or whose concentration will be known to us. There are different concentration terms that can be used to express the concentration of the solution, and those concentrations are molarity, normality, molality, parts per million, mole fraction, mass percent, volume percent, and mass volume percent. So these are the different terms that are used to represent concentration of the solution. So about a detailed discussion about all these concentration terms will be dealt in the theory class in the chapter Some Basic Principles Part 2. That is, we call it as Stoichiometry Part 2. Now, so I will discuss about the concentration term which we will be using during titration. The concentration term which we use during titration is molarity. So now we will quickly define what is molarity, how to denote molarity, and later on we will proceed. So what is meant by molarity of a solution? So molarity is defined as number of moles of solute present dissolved in 1 liter of the solution. The number of moles of solute present dissolved in 1 liter of the solution is called as molarity of the solution. Molarity is denoted by capital M. So this is the formula by using which we will calculate molarity of the solution. And detailed discussion about it will be done in the theory class. So now we will see how to use the apparatus, because these are new to us. You might have not seen it, you might have not used it. So I'll tell you how to use this. So before seeing the usage of it, let's see why these apparatus has to be required. Of course, I am mixing 2 solutions. No, why can't I take 2 solutions in the measuring cylinders and mix it? Why do I want all these things? So all these apparatus are graduated, and when the solution are taken to the respective levels, their readings will be accurate. The volume will be accurate. There will not be any error while doing it. And during titration, we will be determining the accurate concentration. While we take measuring cylinders, we will not be able to give the accurate concentration. We will lie with some errors. That's the reason we will be using these special apparatus. Now, so how to use this? Whenever you start the titration, first and foremost thing, you have to wash all the apparatus with water. After washing the apparatus with water, next is rinsing of the apparatus. What do we mean by rinsing it? Rinsing of the apparatus is nothing but washing of the apparatus in the solution with the solution which is filled in that particular apparatus. For example, in the burette, we will be filling a solution, and the solution filled in the burette is called as titrant. The solution filled in the burette is called as titrant. So, titrant has to be filled in this. So, titrant has to be filled into this burette. So, now I will tell you how to fill the burette and how to take the readings of in the burette. So, before filling it, so assume we have already washed it. Now, I am filling it. Before filling the solution, knob of the burette should be closed. It should be in this position. It should be resting like this. After it, start filling the solution. So, now for instance, I am taking water, start filling it. While we are filling it, take the solution above the level. See, 0 mark is over here. I have taken solution above this. Why I have taken? Because the nozzle portion of the burette is empty. If we have to fill this nozzle portion also, right? So, in order to fill this, what I will do? I will quickly remove the air gaps. Now, the nozzle is also completely filled. Be careful. A careful check has to be taken to check that whether any air bubbles are present in the nozzle portion. If at all any air bubbles are there, then the value will not be accurate. You will end up with erratic values. So, check whether the air bubbles are there or not. So, now if you are saying the solution is continuous, which means there are no air bubbles. So, nozzle portion is filled. Next, what I have to do is, I have to fill the solution. Initially, I have to fill the solution to the 0th marking. How to fill the solution? If you are looking at the surface of this solution here, if you are looking at the surface of the solution, a bulged portion, so if this is considered as the stem of the burette, a bulged portion like this is observed in the burette on the surface. This we call it as, these two we call it as meniscus. It's called as meniscus. This is called as lower meniscus, and this is called as upper meniscus. Lower meniscus and upper meniscus. In both burette and pipette, while we are filling the solution, if the lower meniscus is visible, then we have to adjust the solution to the lower meniscus using lower meniscus only. When we are taking the readings also, we have to concentrate on the lower meniscus. If lower meniscus is not visible, then we can go for upper meniscus, right? So, here in the burette now, the two meniscus are clearly visible. One is the straight portion and the other is the bulged portion. Since both the meniscus are visible, I will concentrate on lower meniscus now. So, during the beginning of the titration, this lower meniscus should end on this 0 line. Only then the reading will be considered as 0. So, how to take the reading? As you are seeing, the readings are starts from 0 to 50, which means on this burette there are 50 main divisions, and between each main division there are 10 subdivisions, and the value of each subdivision is 0.1. So, while we are taking the reading, check the level, check the reading, whether it is, first check which main division it is, later on go for the subdivision and check the reading. While we are taking the reading, we will not be going from the bottom to top. We will go from top to bottom. So now I'll show you how to adjust it to 0. Now again the solution is more. It is not to the 0 level. So what I'll do, carefully looking at it, I will remove some solution from the nozzle like this. So as you are seeing, the solution is coming down now. And while you are taking the reading, meniscus should be raised to the eye level. We should stand straight, stand still, raise the meniscus to the eye level. It is not like meniscus is over here, I am seeing like this. It should not be like that. Stand still and straight, raise the meniscus to your eye level, then check where is the lower meniscus. So now to my eye level, the lower meniscus is not to the 0 marking, it is above it. So still the adjustment has to be made. So again, I'll try to remove few drops, 1 or 2 drops, I'll try to remove it. So now I have removed the drops. One more small drop has to be removed. Yes. Now, if you are seeing, the lower meniscus is exactly coinciding on this 0 marking. So the solution should be filled like this and it has to be clamped to the burette. While we are clamping it to the burette stand should be kept like this and the knob of the burette should be on the right hand side. It should not be like this. Knob should be on the right hand side. Okay. Then coming to the pipette, how to take up the solution in the pipette. So assume that a solution is taken in this beaker. Now I'll show you how to fill in the burette. So this is very simple, as we already have the habit of taking juice. So we have to suck the solution. While sucking the solution, be careful. This is not the juice which you normally have. It is a chemical substance. It should never enter your mouth. So be careful. So while you are taking, the tip of the pipette should be completely immersed into the solution. While you are pipetting out the solution, don't pipette like this. Hold this beaker in the hand and then start pipetting. So the tip is completely dipped in the solution. Now start sucking the solution. While we are sucking the solution, we have to always suck the solution above this marking. Afterwards, we have to adjust the lower meniscus to this marking and then transfer it. So start sucking it. And close it with the forefinger, not with the thumb. See, I am closing with my forefinger, not with the thumb, or index finger I am closing it. Never use the thumb for closing it. So close it tightly. So if air gaps are there, then the solution will come down. The solution is over here, marking is over here. Now I have to adjust the marking in such a way that the lower meniscus of this solution is exactly coinciding on this mark. How will I do it? By slightly rotating it. So if you are seeing, the solution is coming down now. So slowly the solution is coming down, and what I am doing is I am giving a slight air gap. Air is pushing the solution down, and as the meniscus, see now I have closed. The solution is exactly, lower meniscus of the solution is exactly coinciding on the reading. As soon as it is done, it should not be kept in the beaker. It has to be transferred into the conical flask. Okay. And among the two solutions, the solution taken in the conical flask is called as aliquot. A-L-I-Q-U-O-T. Solution taken in the pipette is solution pipetted out in the conical flask is called as aliquot. And while we are transferring the solution from the pipette to the conical flask, we are not supposed to blow it. Okay, don't blow it, and carefully tap the tip of the solution to the bottom of the conical flask and try to take out as much solution as possible. So I have done it 2 to 3 times is sufficient. Now I have taken out as much as solution out. After I taking it, this amount of solution is still remaining in the pipette. Leaving this amount, whatever solution I have taken will be 10 ml. So if I blow it, even this solution will come, then the volume will not be exactly 10 ml, it will be more than 10 ml. When the solution is different, then obviously erratic values will be there. So now after pipetting out, and while holding the pipette also, pipette should be held on the stem like this. This is called as stem of the pipette. Pipette has to be held on the stem. Bulb of the pipette should not be held like this. Because this is very thin, the temperature of your body is sufficient to slightly expand it, wherein again the volume of the solution will be more. Therefore, always hold the pipette on the stem like this. So after pipetting out, place the pipette on the table. To this conical flask, we have to add the indicator now. So I said it, indicator is a chemical substance which will indicate the completion of the reaction by showing the color change. So after adding the indicator, whatever the resultant mixture we get, that is called as reaction mixture. So reaction mixture is a mixture of aliquot and the indicator that we are adding. Right? After this, the reaction mixture should be titrated against the titrant taken in the burette until the color change is observed. Once the color change is observed, the titration has to be stopped, volume of the solution has to be recorded. Further will be the calculation part.